It'll dry out, right? We don't want it to dry out until it's on the cake. Check this out. Take this string, take a ruler. Okay. That's 13.5. Convert that to ounces. That's how much you need. Okay? But this stuff stretches and this stuff shrinks. It doesn't have any gluten in it, but it's as if it does. Okay? So you need a little bit bigger amount. So we always like roll it 1 inch more. So it's kind of like if that was 13, I would make this 15. That's the minimal amount. That's gonna make it really thin. In some cake competitions, they actually measure the depth of the fondant. So always read the rules. If you're like, you know, producing a cake illegally out of your 6th floor walk-up and you and your friend are trying to carry the thing down the stairs, the cake we make here, she's only 2 inches, 2 tiers high, weighs about 12 pounds. Okay, when you got the giant thing with the fondant on it and the wood and you're like, oh my God, you gotta be able to carry the thing, okay? You know, so it's not funny, all right? So if you don't want excess weight of fondant, especially when you're paying $80 a bucket for the kind that holds the black color, you know, and tastes good, right? It's very important, okay? So you want to get enough, but you don't want to short yourself, but you want to make sure you've got it. This can be a useful rule of thumb, okay? Let's take the baby cake. It's 6 inches, right? How high do you think that thing is? What?
2 inches?
No, it's not quite 2.
1?
Not quite 1. Let's say it's 1.5. Should we say it's 1.5? We could use a ruler, right? 1.5 plus 6 is
7.5.
plus 1.5.
9.
9 plus 1 on each side.
11.
Okay, you need 11 ounces. Okay, to make it like ample. All right. Does everybody get that? So the one, this is a little bit smaller and this is a little bit bigger, and I want you to see what it's like when you actually roll a circle for different sizes. You know, styrofoam is less forgiving in a way than cake because the cake will have like buttercream on it. I know there's no buttercream today, okay? Let's just stick the stupid thing on. It's not a real project. But styrofoam is dry. We need to use some of the royal to help the styrofoam stick on, okay? If you ever have like a bakery and you want to make a display, you could actually cover the entire styrofoam with royal. Right now, sorry, you're not going to cover the entire styrofoam with royal. What are you going to do? If there's a hole or something, you can fix the hole, okay? If there's a seam, sometimes the way they're manufactured, there's kind of a vertical seam right here. And that was going to bother you, you could cover it up, okay? But just kind of fix the flaws, all right? We're not trying to permanently get this thing to glue on, although one could, okay? I knew there was something else we forgot. I just knew it. We forgot some syrup, okay? So we're gonna get a hotel pan and a brush, and we need some syrup. The styrofoam is not real cake. Your real cake is sticky enough. I think it's gonna stick for our purposes for tonight, okay? It's an exercise. You'll need a separate string, right? This one's like way too big, obviously, right? I'll do this one because this is what I got needed. And then you can do your little one. Okay, wow.
Too big?
Yeah, just a little. Okay, I'll use one of these. No, these have to fall. Okay, we got it. This is probably enough for everybody. Okay, but you know, it isn't, doesn't have like glue and it's dry. So if you don't give it some help, your fondant can tear on the edge even though you softened it with the, what's the matter?
Sorry.
The fondant can tear, so you want it to stick. Does anybody know what happens so if it started really raining, what happens to glucose or syrup?
Dissolves.
Yeah, kind of like absorbed humidity, and then the fondant slides off, okay? So too little bad, too much bad, okay? Too little, you know, kind of dabbing it around. That's enough probably on the top. It's not like swimming in it. You need a lot like up here, like at the shoulder, where the stress on the fondant's gonna be draping. A cake is much softer. It's gonna be more forgiving, but here this is not forgiving at all. Sometimes, occasionally, when you're rolling your fondant out, you need to kind of lift the bottom up and stick in a tiny bit more syrup if it's moving all around. But like if you look, I won't hand this to you because it's really sticky, okay? can you see it's like it's there, but it's not like saturating it, okay? So I'm gonna put this over here. Now we may actually find it kind of dissolves on the table a little bit. So that's like one reason I put it away, because you don't want it anywhere near the part that you're rolling, okay? I'm gonna grab a wet towel for a second. You need to keep cleaning your table. You don't want to try to roll in any old like gooey bits. We want the rolling to go really well. Does anybody know 2 options you can roll in? What did I have you prepare for us, Jess?
Cornstarch and couscous.
What would be an option for cornstarch? To alternative that will taste a little better? Powdered sugar? It's like marshmallow. If it's really raining, the cornstarch is better, okay? Which is better from a taste perspective, the powdered sugar. A lot of people use like 50-50 because it kind of gets the best of the humidity and the flavor thing. You don't weigh it, you kind of eyeball it. Same thing when you cut marshmallows, you're gonna find that you do the same kind of thing. You want a perimeter zone about as big, okay? And this is very, very fine. You can get very fine powdered sugar shaker lids. Like if you had a cake business, you did it all the time, you'd probably have a wedding cake sheeter and you'd probably use a shaker kind of a thing, okay? But you don't want lumps. Is this making sense so far? Okay. What's the difference between a wedding cake sheeter and the regular sheeter? Maybe. It could be smaller or something.
It's not made out of the same material.
That's canvas, yep. And that one has like an impression. So does wood, okay? So a lot of people who do wedding cakes like buy like a silicone roller because it doesn't have an impressions. And they have like a kind of like non-stick silicone stuff instead of canvas. It's fine, okay? If you had to really run a wedding cake stuff through that thing, you could, you know, as long as it was clean, okay? All right, we're good so far? Mm-hmm. Okay, to get the cake to stick, I'm gonna just use a little dab of royal icing, okay? So that's kind of ready. You could also use like loops of masking tape, but that's the idea. On your real cake, the only thing I would say you need to do is like just make sure your board is not really outside the edge and just trim it with your scissors if necessary, because you know, otherwise it'll be like fondant and then fondant, which would look silly. Okay, so you always trim your boards. All right, but that doesn't need trimming. Look, I got a little bit too much. Can you see? Okay, so I'm just gonna let it sit over there because I don't want it anywhere near my fondant, but I don't know if any more is gonna come off, so it's kind of silly to stop and clean that right now. Okay, I'll clean it later. And now you need this smooth, okay? Questions? From the second this is uncovered till it's done, finished, over, 5 minutes. If you do it within 5 minutes, it's gonna be beautiful. If you're still there in 40 minutes, you're gonna see like elephant skin cracking, okay? I've seen 2 hours, okay? 5 minutes, okay? I'm gonna have to talk though, all right? So I'm gonna have to show you a couple more things, but like remember, you're just gonna like do one, and then you're gonna do another. You're gonna put them on the foil boards, and the foil boards, and you're gonna clean up your table, okay? What else you're gonna do then? We're gonna come talk about royal icing and make cornets, all right? But right now, this is the priority, and then we go to royal icing, okay? You have plenty there, you can share. All right, you know, maybe I need it all like, I don't know, light orange, okay? Please don't knead it in here. Can you tell me why? Like kind of knead the color in the air? Because what? It could stick to the table. I have to stop and clean. What else would happen? With it would pick this up. What would happen to the texture?
It would dry it out.
Dry it out, and then make it more likely to crack. Okay? So if you're gonna do all one color, that's great, but just do it in the air. Okay? I want to show you something crazy. You know, you don't have to do this. There's many different ways to do this. But this is an option to do this, and you never know if you ever need to like marbleize something. Wow. Why is that stuck? No, that's stuck. Wow. You know, like when it all comes out, I'm gonna have like leprechaun. Oh my God! Wow. Okay. Let's not do that. Interesting. Interesting. I'll have to wash that bottle off though. Strange. It dries protein, right? Your protein? Everybody knows that, right? Did I tell you about the girl when I was in high school? dye your hair every Sunday with food coloring. And it seems to last till Thursday. Now I don't know whether that means she washed her hair on Thursday or it just literally lasted till Thursday. I can't tell you. That's what happened. So I'm gonna make kind of like a marbleized kind of crazy pattern. Obviously you do not need to do this, but you never know, you might someday need to know how to do something, okay? I'm gonna need a little tiny bit more cornstarch on the top than just a plain color. All right, and you also need cornstarch or powdered sugar on your rolling pin so you won't, you know, stick. And you also, please, if there was anything on the rolling pin before you even start, get it off there and dry it, okay? Because it's just gonna sabotage the smoothness. It's like rolling a pie. How do you roll a pie?
In the center. Up, center down.
Center up and not off. Center down and not off. Good. Rotate 90 degrees. Why did you rotate 90 degrees in Mod 2? For the gluten to not get freaked out, right? And to help keep the circle. This stretches, okay? It has glycerin and glucose in it to help it stretch, okay? But it also shrinks, even though it doesn't have any gluten. If it's not stretching in a circle, it can stretch, or you can use your hands to shrink it back. The second it's not a perfect circle, stop and fix the circle. Because if it gets bigger and it looks like Arkansas, it's not gonna cover your cake, okay? So use the fact that it stretches, use the fact that, you know, you're rolling and you're applying a lot of pressure, and if it's not rolling out, you might possibly need some more underneath, you know, bench flour kind of a thing. I have a little bit of a bubble. Can you see that? Yeah. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't happen. If you have a bubble, you can take a toothpick, tip of your paring knife or your X-Acto, and you have to like pop it, which is exactly what your mother told you not to do to blisters. You gotta get the air out of it sooner rather than later. It can happen here on the table, it can happen on the cake. The most heartbreaking thing in the universe is when it happens on the cake and the fondant's dry, because then you go to touch it and it pops and it breaks off the cake and it's too late. So it depends. I'll be with you, right? In like 99 and 100, if it happened between one night and the other, like we might have to cover it with flowers, right? Right now it's still moist and pliable, so I can fix it fine now, okay? Just don't need too much air into it in the beginning. That's one of the factors. Okay, everybody good so far? Start to check that it's not getting too big. And it definitely needs some more here. But if I come all the way around a circle, can you see it's like a little bit better on this side? Okay, kind of makes sense also because it's not a circle, it's an oval, okay? Keep it circular at all times. And keep your string near you. Don't mix your strings up with anybody else. And don't let it get too big. If you get it too big, the fondant will not be on the cake. Okay, if the fondant's not on the cake won't look as smooth. Okay, the thicker the fondant is on the cake, the smoother it looks. I'm gonna actually say I'm in the right range. Okay, now I can smooth out the top surface like a figure 8 a little bit on the table, and that also like helps make sure it's all the same thickness. Okay, that's pretty massive pressure. Boy oh boy. Here, hands. I need 2 hands for this. You have to get your fondant to stick onto the cake also with the same pressure. Okay? Don't be afraid of the fondant. Okay? If you don't apply the pressure, you're not going to have it smooth. Now, you're going to roll it up on here. If for some reason this was sticky or anything, just put down some more dusting flour. I roll it from the top. Bring this over. Be careful, because we're going to have to clean this goo off in a second. Drape it, right? It's just like draping it just at the edge of the table. Can you guys see? Mm-hmm. Can you see? Okay. So just the edge of the table and let it release. This is when you're going to find the biggest difference between cake and the styrofoam, because it could break here, okay? Could break with cake, but it's less likely to break with cake than the edge of the styrofoam. That's why you had to bevel it, okay? And the sides, right? Like this side is pretty naked. Can you, I don't know, can you see? All right, that's the weakest side. This is like the whatever side, longest side. In a way, you know, if you are like, oops, you have a couple seconds to pick it up, okay? And just move it. It usually, believe it or not, picks up like less buttercream or whatever on your cake than you'd think, Okay, I'm trying to get rid of the sticky stuff. I don't want the sticky stuff on my table.